jiu-jitsu is a beautiful flow, right? I mean, the beautiful jiu-jitsu to me is not like I pinned you down, I'm smashing you, you can't move. I mean, there is a lot of beauty and domination, in that, in body domination. I mean, it's really what jiu-jitsu is. But there's also another side of jiu-jitsu, which like the guy goes for something that he's, has full intent, and you're letting him freely move, but your body latches onto him as he's extending and exploding, and he finds himself in a submission, right? But you didn't prevent his movement at all. You actually facilitated and used his energy against him, So there's those two very different sides of applying your energy. Like it's arm wrestling versus go with the flow.
Welcome to Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. Today, I have the incredible honor of sitting down with none other than Clark Gracie, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and world-renowned competitor, instructor, and academy owner. Clark is the son of ninth-degree red belt Carley Gracie and the grandson of Carlos Gracie, the co-founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, making him a living extension of one of the most influential martial arts families in history. Clark is the owner and head instructor of Clark Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in San Diego, California, where he continues to evolve as both a competitor and coach. While many associate him with his legendary Omoplata game, in this conversation, Clark reveals there's much more to his style and strategy than meets the eye. Clark shares his insights on training consistently and how his perspective on jiu-jitsu has evolved over the years. He opens up about the challenges and rewards of running a successful gym, what makes a great student and instructor, and his thoughtful approach on promoting students through the ranks. Clark also reflects on why he hesitated to share content online for years. This was an incredible conversation with someone who embodies jiu-jitsu both on and off the mat. Clark Gracie is a true ambassador for the art, and I'm excited for you to hear his wisdom and experience. And with that, I give you Clark Gracie. Clark, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Adolfo. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, it's such an honor to have you. Mutual friend, Rick Ellison, highly recommended, speaking about you so much. And of course, I know about you, but I'm like, oh, man, I got to reach out to Clark. Why haven't we done this 100 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Rick has been training with us, and it's just been a blessing to have him in the academy and sharing his knowledge and his people, his network. He's got unbelievable connections. So it's been awesome.
Clark, San Diego, how's that going?
San Diego's great, man. I've been here for 2 decades and I love it here, man. It's good life. It's become, just by coincidence, I picked, before it was such a hub for jiu-jitsu, and now it's such a strong place for the growth of jiu-jitsu, and just Southern California in general is pretty strong. So yeah, I got lucky to be pretty much in the heart of it.
Clark Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy, probably one of the staples of San Diego and Southern California in general. What's really interesting too is that I hear some of your students talk about the academy itself being beautiful and the instruction obviously being top notch, but also the encouragement of things like cross training, whereas that didn't used to be so encouraged. Can you talk about that mentality?
Cross training, I encourage people to go and train with our affiliates, but I think that like anytime you cross train, and you got to be in the right mindset for it and have the right attitude for it and everything, but I always took it, especially as a competitor, like when you step into someone else's academy, you're going to have kind of a target on your back. I mean, some schools more than others, you know what I mean? Just depending on the vibe of the school. But I mean, it's good. It's good to train with different people and not get too comfortable with, like I'm going to train with someone that I train with every day, and I'm just so comfortable with their style and dealing with what's coming at me. So it's good to like step out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Now, another thing I want to talk about just briefly here is like your affinity for surfing and how that sort of informed your jiu-jitsu and your outlook on life.
Yeah, the jiu-jitsu culture being so strong from Brazil, and Brazil having such a strong connection with the ocean in general, the culture is similar to like Southern California as well. And I always enjoyed being around the ocean, whether it was surfing or paddleboarding or kayaking or snorkeling or whatever. I just get the energy from the ocean as well. And for me, it was something that I enjoyed. But yeah, I think maybe because it's part of Brazilian culture, it also has that connection. People will say, why are so many Brazilians in San Diego? But I think that has something to do with it because the ocean culture here, the beach culture is so strong.
Is there like a state of mind that you get into, like perhaps like during it, obviously the flow state type of thing, but even afterwards, that feeling you get even like after training or perhaps after surfing?
They talk about how like the idea of being grounded, right? Getting really grounded and talking about how you feel and how actually being in the ocean or being even in the sand, being connected to the earth without those barriers of shoes and even just being in the sun, vitamin D, something about salt water, having that kind of feeling of rejuvenation and refreshment. And there's something about it. And then getting in that state in jiu-jitsu, like finishing a training session when you're just like feel your body's heating up and you feel that you see the steam coming off your forehead and your whole body is super alive, so much circulation pumping through every muscle in your body. There might be some correlation there of like just being grounded and being like in the present, being fully aware of all your senses,
Now, I've heard people mention your work discipline. Is this something you consciously thought about, and how have you developed that?
I think once at least for me, okay, I speak for myself, like once I dedicated myself to be a jiu-jitsu competitor, which was probably when I was, like 19, when I really was like in it and made that decision to like focus on that. I think at that point, you just have this sense of dedication and creating the discipline that comes around it and knowing that no matter how hard it gets, you're just going to keep pushing through. And just being a little bit of a competitive mindset, having that thing where, you just want to step a little bit farther, being one step ahead, like in jiu-jitsu, we're sparring and I just want to always be one step ahead. So the work ethic of, just hard work and seeing it pay off and treating your body with respect, putting good quality things in it and seeing the good result as it comes out in your performance. And I just found myself enjoying that exchange of energy that I put out, that I bring in, and then everything else is kind of a byproduct of that, of that hard work that you just dedicate yourself to and not allow distractions to pull you in the wrong directions. Keep the focus, keep the mission on course, and then everything else kind of comes along, right? People want to train with you, people want to learn from you, people want to be your student, people want to film you, people want to do podcasts with you. It's just things just kind of fall into place sometimes after that hard work. And that's like the best way, right? To really see those results is not because you're trying to get those results, but because you're just enjoying the process and that hard work, the lifestyle, and then results are just like a byproduct of the enjoyment of the art and the sport that you're applying yourself to.
Now, I find oftentimes when I speak with other professionals that sometimes they get pigeonholed maybe into a certain type of techniques or whatever that they may specialize in. When I bring up your name, I often hear Omoplata, obviously, instructional. And what I'm curious about, though, is what are other tools in your arsenal that, maybe some of us are just not aware of that we don't associate with your game, which is hard to say because you've been doing this forever. So you're terribly well-rounded, I'm sure. To that extent, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, Omoplata is something that I think is understudied. It's a position understudied, underutilized, and I was able to like kind of make it click with me at like maybe brown belt. People, would challenge me, be like, "Oh, the Omoplata guy, he's not going to get me an Omoplata," and then I'd make it like a little goal of mine to get people in it, and that's kind of how I was driven towards that technique. But I also was always cautious not to become that one trick pony, and like, okay, if Clark doesn't get you an Omoplata, you're good. I really thought it was important to always be very well rounded and at the same time controlling, like not losing the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, the roots of jiu-jitsu and how that stuff can get away from us these days, but then also following up with the evolution of the sport and how the art is continuing to grow and following up with the technique because it does continue to grow every day. And it's nice to see that and appreciate that. So I really value like the roots of the art and then how the art is growing and evolving. So I pride myself in like having a good connection to both sides of that.
So what specifically in your jiu-jitsu has been interesting you as of late? Sometimes we all fall into like little things that we're maybe working on or something like that.
Well, I do a lot of kimuras. I released like a BJJ Fanatics on kimuras. I call it Kimura Scheme, but basically like the kimura trap system with my own touch to it, my own style. So it's a really strong position. I probably get more kimuras than omoplatas, honestly. But kimura is at a position that branches into lots of other different areas. I'll connect a kimura to an armbar, to omoplata, to a back take. and lots of other fun positions. And, I feel like it's a very dynamic position. So I enjoy it, but I also like, love the simplicity of just like a good old fashioned cross choke, and just how simple that is and how it's like one of the first strokes we learn, but it still works on black belts, and like how we saw a lot of the old school guys do it. So I love every side of jiu-jitsu though.
I'm hearing that you spar every day. Is that true?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty
Your
much.
advice to those of us that want to spar every day.
I think it's important to like prepare your body. So like as much as your mind as your body, your stretching, your warm up. I don't really recommend like stepping on the mat and not have prepared yourself, even because your mind will play tricks on you, thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling good, my mind's in the right space, and change clothes and boom, you just step right on the mat without stretching a hamstring or without opening up your chest and your back and anything. So I think it's important to like kind of prepare your body before you allow someone else to do forced yoga on you. You know what I mean? Do a little yoga on yourself first, and just warm yourself up, because I think that's a big part of injury prevention. And I feel like that I am proof of that. That I've never had surgery. I don't really have anything major that's limiting my body movement. Thank God. And I credit that to. I mean, that's got to be part of it. I think another part of it that was a blessing for me is I've had jiu-jitsu in my life since I was young, so I'm very cautious and aware of like dangerous areas. The few times that I've like pushed my limits, like really want to get that submission, so the guy's smashing me right now, but I'm like not gonna let go and just being a little stubborn, and then sometimes I end up with a little tweak neck or something like that at the end. So just being respectful of your body and understanding when it's like the right time to move on, and not get too stuck in one thing. Jiu-jitsu is a beautiful flow, right? I mean, the beautiful jiu-jitsu to me is not like I pinned you down, I'm smashing you, you can't move. I mean, there is a lot of beauty and domination, in that, in body domination. I mean, it's really what jiu-jitsu is. But there's also another side of jiu-jitsu, which like, the guy goes for something that he's, has full intent, and you're letting him freely move, but your body latches onto him as he's extending and exploding, and he finds himself in a submission, right? But you didn't prevent his movement at all. You actually facilitated and used his energy against him, So there's those two very different sides of applying your energy, right? Like it's arm wrestling versus go with the flow kind of thing.
Right. Now, it seems like early on in our development, we sometimes have a proclivity for a certain type of style, whether it's like being a counterpuncher or being offensive or whatever. What was initially your type of proclivity?
Initially, I was that guy that was kind of like just a lot of movement, using energy and momentum, and allowing people to make mistakes, setting them up for traps, but not really like super smashing and controlling. And I think as my game developed, now I'm being more efficient with my energy, and thinking like I'm going to use less energy, but I'm going to control you the right way so that I can take it at my pace, the pace that I want to, instead of flowing off the other person's energy all the time. I think it depends on my mood as well. But yeah, originally I would love that flow roll, and I think that was really good for like just connecting my brain with all these different sensors of submission, finding submissions all over the place and understanding balance and danger areas and just allowing movement to happen. I thought it was just such a common quote, like go with the flow. But when I started saying it, people were like, oh, wow, that's great. You know what I mean? Because I guess a lot of people think of jiu-jitsu as just like, I'm going to, smash you and I'm strong, and, you know what I mean? But there are different methods, right? Different styles of doing that.
I'm curious how your perspective of jiu-jitsu in general has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I think it's just the natural like evolution of your style, and you start to become so aware, you become so knowledgeable in so many different positions that you can see things coming, and therefore use less energy, not wasting energy, being efficient with your energy. And so I think I'm really enjoying that, controlling timing and being sharp to capitalize the right moments. I don't know if it's like becoming like a slower jiu-jitsu pace for me, but yeah, I'm enjoying like the tight game, the pressure game a little bit more, the dominant, and just giving myself different challenges in my roles. But yeah, I think it's important to roll as much as you can. I think that's the fun part of jiu-jitsu. I think that's what keeps us in shape, is that constant movement, that rolling, and letting your mind just like find that. That's when we find that meditative state, right? That therapeutic thing when we're just, probably like 2 or 3 rolls in is where we start to tap into it. I don't think you can do like, I'm gonna roll like 2 or 3 rolls and then I'm done for the day, and you probably won't get there. I think you need to get through at least like 4 or 5 rounds, like start to really tap into that, how it rewards you. At least like if you're doing 5-minute rounds, 6-minute rounds.
Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in salt electrolytes.
How did you start teaching? How did you develop your teaching? And what does it look like now, the whole evolution?
Yeah, I started teaching it really when I was like 14. My dad was like pretty regularly, unfortunately, late for class, and then I would get stuck in this position. I'm like, well, let me show you guys something. And then at first, the adults were like, what's this kid gonna show me, And then I'm just like, okay, they're not taking me seriously, whatever. And then little by little, I started to realize that they are like picking up little things here and there. And then my dad would ask me to show moves, demonstrate things, and I think he was gaining more and more confidence in me to become a good teacher and probably growing me into that profession. But I enjoy it. I think the fact that I enjoy teaching, that I enjoy the reward of seeing someone use techniques that I've taught them, and the benefits that come with jiu-jitsu, and just all these stories that we so commonly hear about how jiu-jitsu has made a positive impact in their life, how it's changed people's lives, and great outlet, and great thing to have in your life in general. I moved to San Diego when I was 19, started teaching a year or so later, a couple years later maybe. And my dad kind of guided me into that as well. Started teaching at a boxing club. I have students from that day one still, it's amazing. That was in '05. So 20 years this year I've been teaching here.
Rick is guilty as charged. He told me about this. He said he would ask a question to the student, something like, who knows how to do this technique? And then you would say, come teach it. And then who does it differently? And then you would show how you like to do it. So I'm like, wow, that is very clever.
Yeah, well, it's something that I started doing recently. It has a benefit for them to like break things down, and it's helpful for them. But honestly, I'm doing it for myself really, because I want to be able to do belt promotions at the end of the year. And I want to be able to know, okay, am I imagining this person knows this technique, or do they really know it? Like, honestly, I was very anxious. I was feeling some anxiety about the belt promotions this year because I'm starting to get a lot of brown belts. I have a long lineup of brown belts, which I'm so proud of. But, that next belt is a huge promotion. It's a huge connection. And I mean, all of these guys, like I would only imagine that they will get their black belts with me. I don't imagine any of them leaving or disconnecting from me at some point, being so far in. So I want to give brown belts, give black belts, especially the black belt, obviously, with a lot of confidence in me, that I know that I'm giving it to someone who's so well deserving. So anyways, that being said, I started putting them on the test, and like, okay, I'm going to show this move. I want to show this move. But instead of me showing the move, let me call this guy to show a move that I want them to show. Hey guys, who can show this move? Okay, and if they miss a detail that I would have liked them to show, or I see a hole in it, which is fine, they're going to maybe be a little nervous, or they might forget something, or they might literally not know it. Then I give a chance for someone else. Hey, does anyone else have something to add to this, or someone else do it differently, without trying to say like, you did it wrong, you missed the detail, and make them feel terrible. Because of course I'm not trying to intimidate them or make them feel like, oh, I shouldn't raise my hand because I'm on the spot. I want them to feel confident, like if somebody asks me, oh, show a armbar from wherever, mount, guard, like I do it with my eyes closed, right? And I want these guys to be able to do it too, and of course it's kind of frustrating when they don't raise their hand, and it's like, come on, like, it, you should all be raising your hand at this point. But it's something that helps me decide, what you're supposed to know at this level. And if they do know it, then maybe I can grow it into another position. Or what do you do if the guy does this? And then start to build like that chess match of, okay, you're approached with this escape. Now, how do you counter his escape? and see what is their reaction to that. Are they reacting properly, or do they have an idea? Do they not have an idea? Are they just guessing? So just making sure they're as complete as possible. And I find it's a good way to make sure people know what they're supposed to know.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very clever. It's almost like testing without testing,
Yeah.
in a
And I
way.
started doing that at the end of last year, right before we did belt promotion, like a month and a half before. And I started realizing I should have been doing this all year,
Yeah.
I almost want to say, like, I'm not
That's
teaching
actually a
anymore.
great tip for instructors. That's fantastic, Clark.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I even thought, like, I'm not going to teach anymore. I'm going to tell the students what I want them to show me. Like, hey, I want to see this move. Who's going to show it to me? And then I only actually step in the center of that circle of teaching when I realize, okay, there's there's a part of this technique that no one is bringing up, and I need to step in now and make sure it's taught. Or maybe I'll show my own version of one of these techniques.
There's so many things there too. One of which is, and I often hear this from academy owners and instructors in general, is the pressure of the promotion time and everything you have to think about and the anxiety with that. And as you said, compounded by the amount of brown belts that you have to deal with. How do you deal with all that? Do you stay awake at night and you're just like, oh gosh, here it comes?
Yeah, I think that some reason this year was the hardest, because I think people were joking around a lot, like, oh, I'm gonna get my black belt this year, or hey, so and so, that looks like a black belt technique, and they were just like, playing around, like, who's gonna get promoted? What I did? I ended up promoting no black belts this last year. I didn't promote anybody, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do like a bunch of lower belts up to like purple, brown. I give certain browns as well, but the black belts, I was like, I want to feel very confident that you guys not only know everything that you need to know that is expected for you to know on the ground, but I want to make sure you know the self-defense as well. I want to make sure that if someone comes to you and says, hey, I was in an altercation and I'm not going to become a competitor, but I would like to know some tactics to help me feel more confident, more self-defense, then that's something that they can do. They can break that down easily. And I have a couple classes a week that I focus on the roots of our jiu-jitsu, and that includes being able to defend yourself on the street. So I want to hold people accountable for knowing that information.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that at black belt, especially too. I'm hearing this more and more increasingly. Another thing I'm hearing from academy owners is that when they think about belting black belt, something like that, they think about, oh, well, I want to make sure they got some self-defense data in them. And I really want to be sure of that. But whereas I wasn't hearing a lot of that just, even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's, somebody asked me recently that, do you think jiu-jitsu will ever become like something that's like considered a joke, like, oh, jiu-jitsu doesn't work in real life, and because it'll get so fancy, so sporty. Of course, the sport is very strong, but we can't really deny that sport jiu-jitsu does at times put us in positions where it's not ideal for a street situation, right? For something that you would do on the street, So if we said, hey, I'm only going to teach you stuff that if someone was going to start a fight with you in your backyard, you would be able to do, or someone was going to, as you're getting out of your car, just parking in a parking lot as you go, getting in or getting out of your car, like, this stuff that's going to work. Okay, let's consider all the factors. There could be a curb by you, there's a sidewalk, there's concrete, whatever. You're dealing with different environments. And in sport jiu-jitsu, we have this luxury, which is the mat, to be able to be so comfortable and confident that there's nothing that we're going to bump our head on, or something that we're going to fall on, or being comfortable being on the bottom, not being against the wall or whatever. Even in jiu-jitsu, you get close to the wall, it's like, hey, let's go back to the middle. We don't really say, let's keep fighting even though we're against the wall. It's like, it is what it is. I mean, you're going to be in a fight and be like, hey man, we're getting close to the edge here. We're getting close to the wall, we're getting close to the street, we're on the side, let's move over. That's not, that kind of question is not going to happen. It's just something to think about, and try to keep jiu-jitsu strong and real. Yeah, I think it is important to understand the self-defense side of things too. Sometimes you want to keep the fight on the stand up and not go to the ground, and having something in that region of the fight, in that area of the fight, that you have answers to.
I was just speaking with a black belt, Josh Fogel, out of Philadelphia, and he was mentioning that he studies a lot of these YouTube fights that you see, right? Or even those Instagram fights that break out in streets or bars or whatever it may be, right? And he studies them because that's more the reality. He sees like it's rarely the one-on-one thing. There's always a friend over here, maybe someone else was there. A stranger jumps in over here, try to break it up, and then it's just chaos and all this stuff. And he sees a lot of strategies and things you need to think about in this sort of chaos versus like what happens in the academy, right?
Yeah, one time it was kind of funny. I had a little quick story. I picked up a friend of a friend at the time, and they had been like drinking and stuff, and the guy was like, "Oh, this is Clark. He's a black belt and this and that." And then he's like, "Oh, okay, And then we get out of the car, and I'm opening the trunk, and then he jumps on my back. This guy like that I don't know, but he jumped on my back, and immediately I'm like, okay, like I'm in a jiu-jitsu scenario. I'm totally fine with that because we do it all the time, so I'm not panicking. But then I realize, wait a minute, we're not on the mat, and then I kind of peel him off me, and he's still going at it, like he's still trying to take me down, and I'm like, how long do we go with this, And and then I kind of get him down. But then I scrape my foot on the ground, and I'm like, I think I didn't realize it till later, but I'm like stuck in half guard, and he's not letting me go. And then I'm just like, I know we're not really fighting, but how far is this going to go? And I know it's kind of playful, but we're in like, we're on the concrete right now. We're like just parked the car. And it was kind of like a little bit of a wake up call because I'm like, well, I'm not going to punch him because he's not punching me. So this is not like super real, but he was like just taking it way too far, and, a little bit of bloodshed on my foot. And I started questioning, like, how far is this going to go? But as comfortable as I am in a combat contact scenario, I started realizing how I wasn't comfortable where we were doing it, right? If it was on the mat, set the timer, I'll go until you tap or, but then I was really, I don't want to go down. I don't want to go to the floor. I don't want to stay up. Now you're on the bottom and you're not wearing a gi. And where do I grab? What do I do? Who's going to stop this? When does it stop? So it was just funny because it was harmless because it was playful, but I didn't know who the guy was. Like, we got to know each other later, but it made me kind of think about, like, in the street it's different, and he could have been throwing punches, and he could have been with a friend. Things are different.
Yeah,
so,
curbs and concrete, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
very different, very different.
And people have their fatalities with like someone hitting their head on a curb.
Totally.
And it becomes something tragic, it can be.
Now, hard left turn, I want to talk about sport jiu-jitsu again. And specifically, like when your guys are competing and you're coaching on the side, what are you doing? What is your coaching style when it comes to competing?
Yeah, I've explored different ways about this, like I've seen instructors where they act like they're playing a video game, like right hand, left collar, ankle grip, like every single thing you're telling the student to do. And I've been like encouraged. Some people have encouraged me, like, yell louder, tell them what to do, motivate them, like constantly. Yeah, I can do that. It's exhausting. You end up losing your voice after the first day of the tournament. And then my dad's style, I think, was kind of like, he knows what to do. He's been through the training. We don't need to do, video game controller on this guy. And, going in, of course, like I have to believe that he's ready and not like I have to tell him every last little thing, right? And as well, I don't want his opponent to hear everything that I am planning against him. So it's tricky, being a coach and knowing the right approach to it. And maybe it could probably vary from competitor to competitor, like what you think you should say. And in the end, like the coach is not in that match. They're not in there. So they can't really make all the calls 100%. But what I did find very helpful, I would always tell people, tell me time and tell me points. Make sure I don't know. Back when I was competing a lot, even early black belt days, there was no big screens a lot of the time. It was just like, yeah, it was cards and it was a timer in the hand, and then they would throw something in the mat, when you're done. So, I always wanted to make sure I was aware of, like, I go through a crazy scramble, I get down on points, and I have to do the math in my head. Well, it's nice to have somebody there. Now with the screens generally are there, it's a little bit easier. And, sometimes you don't even need a coach. But on the other side, like, it's also great to have a coach to like kind of sometimes you start to question yourself, be like, oh man, I'm gonna lose this match, I can't believe it. I'm down on points. I don't think I'm gonna make it back from it. But having someone to like really pump you up and make you push through. One time I was at ADCC in 2013 in Beijing, and me and Dean Lister shared a room, and he asked me to. He didn't have any coach there. He was kind of there by himself, kind of like I was. Of course we knew a lot of people, but he asked me, "Will you coach me? Will you be in my corner?" And he said, "If you see I'm down, if you see I'm like stop moving or something," he just said, "Tell me, dig, dig, Dean, dig, dig." Like dig within your heart, dig deep. That's how I understood it. Like dig deep to get the motivation, the energy, the discipline to work, work, work. Don't give up. And I think just having someone there, yeah, I can attest that there's been moments I've had some like marking fights where it was like I kind of gave up, a minute to go, and I'm like I'm gonna lose. Kind of accepting that reality. And then all of a sudden somebody comes out and is like, come on, Clark, go, go, go. And then I'm like, all right, let me give it one more hard push, push to the end, like it's just this last sprint, right? And, I was able to surprise myself multiple times, like, and make a comeback. It's like something out of like, a movie, what I mean? Right? Where you're like down and then all of a sudden in the last seconds you make a comeback. So that's nice to have somebody in your corner doing that for you.
So let's assume I'm a hobbyist generalist and I'm walking into Clark Gracie Academy. What would make me a great student?
I think it's nice to have the students that are just, that person that makes eye contact, that says hello, that's willing to learn, that asks questions, but actually good questions for the most of the time. Like every once in a while you get a student, it's like, man, that was a really good question, especially for a white belt. You're asking really good questions, and sometimes you expect questions that are not so great or questions that they'll figure out on their own as soon as they do the move. But I think asking questions, being vocal, just being kind of humble and willing to learn and being that student that people take pleasure in teaching and also just, being that student that's showing that you really are committed, just coming in with a good attitude, I think is the biggest thing. But, the attention and trust that you give your instructor, I think is a big reward for the instructor and makes them want to even share more with you.
Just a reminder to please give us a 5-star review on Apple Music and Spotify and become a VIP member for only 99 cents a month. Get ad-free episodes at anchor.fm/foreverwhitebelt/subscribe and check us out on Instagram at Forever White Belt Show. Go buy your Forever White Belt swag at teespring.com/forever-white-belt. Check us out on YouTube now at Forever White Belt. Finally, if you ever get to beautiful Northern California, please come roll with us at North Bay Jiu-Jitsu in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. They're amazing instructors and everyone there are great people. Mention the podcast and get 2 weeks free. So then conversely, what makes a great instructor?
Well, I think you have to be patient as an instructor, obviously. Like, you're going to get those questions and you can't be that person to be like, that was a stupid question, or, what I mean? Like, making the student feel embarrassed, always motivating, knowing your students' names, having direct contact with them, patting them on the back. I would love it as a student, like I'm sparring and all of a sudden I do something that gave me points or gave me a win, and everybody's sparring at the same time. And then all of a sudden I hear my instructor say, nice, Clark, good job, and I was like, oh, wow, he saw that, So like feeling that recognition too, So I think being the instructor that's giving your students those little priceless rewards of recognition, the student even hearing their name, the student getting that personal time, that personal contact. I've seen a lot of instructors teach their class and just kind of like lean on the wall and until they want to change to the next one. And then you see other instructors that will show a move and then they'll do a lap around the mat and check and make adjustments and tell the students what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. I think that's good.
So what's the culture of Clark Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, I'm really proud that people have for many years said, wow, the vibe here is great. I take that as a huge compliment, that we have a good vibe. and trying to make it as welcoming as possible because I think jiu-jitsu is already tough enough as it is to like just step on the mat in the first place and make yourself leave your comfort zone and then go to a place where you have no idea what's going to happen. And even day to day, you don't know who's going to show up. You don't know who you're going to get paired up with. You don't know if you're going to get hurt or not. You know, like you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to learn something. You're going to you pay the price a little bit to learn it sometimes. So, you know, make it as comfortable and welcoming as you can for people. And I don't think there's any attitude that needs to be brought to the academy. So, you know, I think we have a good vibe for that. You know, even like the music that is playing, the colors in the academy, the person at the front desk. You know, I've been to academies, I've snuck into academies before, and I've sat down and I'm watching the class with the idea to like maybe train or come back and train another time. Maybe if I'm on vacation or something, you know, like walk into an academy. And I remember like there's been some times where no one comes say hi to me, you know, no one like, they just look there, you know, and I'm just like, all right, whatever, you know, like not really interested to come back again, you know. And that's me, that I'm comfortable in that situation. Imagine someone who is like, you know, terrified to walk in and then they don't get any reception from them.
Yeah, that's always one of the highest priorities. When I see someone that's brand new that walked in, I've never seen before, I immediately, even if I'm talking to someone and say, excuse me, I beeline right for that person and say hello and then ask them questions, trying to make them feel comfortable. It's imperative. It's weird. It's great business too, right?
Yeah. It's great just personal relationships, you know, like it's great etiquette in general in life to like, you see someone you don't know, you shake their hand, you say hello, you make eye contact. You know, I kind of take it as like, if you walk into someone's house, you're going to say hello, right? If someone walks into my house, I'm going to say hello, right? I'm going to be like, how can I help you? What's up? You know, so it's kind of a similar thing. And I think students should also look at it that way, even if they're regulars, you know, like come in and say hello to the instructor and your peers to create that good energy. So I think, you know, it trickles down from the upper belts and that good vibe that we try to create.
Can you share one of your fondest childhood memories?
Oh, I don't know, man. This is a tough one. That's a lot. But I mean, I guess because we're talking about jiu-jitsu, you know, I remember, you know, it's those hazy memories that you have of your childhood of being like 3 or 4 years old and my dad's rolling around with me and maybe my sister on the living room and then he's showing us like rear naked choke, you know, and like just taking pride in teaching us these things. And yeah, it's some good memories, you know, the first, you know, you're having fun just wrestling around. Actually, you know, I have 2 sons now, and I was reading on this topic about like how it's so important for children to get like this, especially boys, I guess, to get like the rough housing, horseplay, and how that's actually plays a role in their personality and their upbringing, and how actually you might look at it and be like, stop messing around, you're going to break something, you know, kids playing together or playing with parents or with peers, whatever. But actually that's a pretty important part of growing up, you know. I think it's something psychological, but
Yeah, there's
it's real,
several
you know.
books on that now. Yeah, there's a book called Play
Yeah.
that's very important. Yeah, that they mentioned specifically that. I know there's
Yeah.
been a lot of like association with ADD and things like that in boys when they're sort of deprived of a lot of this type of physical outlet.
Yeah. And then, you know, taking me back to when I experienced that as a young kid and remembering how much I enjoyed it, you know, and not really understanding why I enjoyed it, but it was, you know, something that I enjoyed doing.
Now, I noticed one of your classes, you have a class called Strategies. What is that?
Strategies is just something I call for the basically intermediate class, and strategies exactly kind of what it sounds like is I want to get to this submission, so I'm gonna start with this sweep that's gonna make my partner react this way, and then I'm gonna shoot to the submission, which actually might make him react. You know, 90% chance he's gonna, let's say, posture out of a triangle, right? And then when he postures, this is exactly how I'm gonna react to that. So kind of like making sequences, making lineup of these, you know, chaining techniques together, basically.
So it's not necessarily funneling or anything, right? It's more, it sounds like something
Oh,
else
actually,
a bit.
funneling is a word that I use a lot. I'm starting to use it a ton right now, like funneling. Like, I don't know if you're talking about the same way I use it, but I'm talking about like if I'm in side control and I want my partner to react a certain way and walk into a submission, then I'm gonna, you know, hold his knee and I'm gonna staple this arm so that he only has one way to escape. So now I can completely anticipate his next move, and when I do anticipate it, I'm ready to capitalize on it. So I call that funneling. Funneling, I feel like is easier to do like on top, but on the bottom, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to try this sweep, and very dependent on who I'm training with, they might react in so many different ways. And if they have plan A, plan B, plan C, and you try to have some follow up to their reactions, right? Some preparation for what's coming next, thinking ahead, right?
What do you mean when you mention Jiu-Jitsu balances us?
Yeah, balance is something, everything in life, everything in life, I think we strive for balance, and something feels peaceful, harmonious when it's balanced. But I think, like we're talking about, kids need horseplay. I think adults need an outlet, whether it's physical, and they're sweating out toxins from what they had for lunch or the night before, or they're dealing with something that's really bothering them, and then they're at home thinking about it, or they're at work thinking about it, and then when they come and they say hello to a few people, they're still kind of thinking about it, and then they jump on the mat and they do the warm up, and it's slowly like exiting their mind, and then they shake hands, start sparring, and you can't think about anything else except for what's happening right in front of you. And then by the end of the time you leave, you feel like there's some balance, right? So maybe you're feeling really heavy, really stressed, but then this brought you back to like kind of centered your spirit, and and then you walk out being like, what was I thinking about before I got here? And then you realize, oh yeah, I'm stressed today, I forgot about that. But even though you're remembering that stress, you had so much relief till that point, and you've put yourself through this cycle, this mission of getting through that workout, getting through someone else attacking you. You've been presented all these obstacles and challenges in your sparring, whether maybe it's more the mental side, understanding technique. There's got to be something too to like continued education, continued challenging your brain to understand something new, which I think a lot of time we get very comfortable in our professions, and we just get on this routine, like I know exactly what to do, and I'm teaching this thing, not necessarily in jiu-jitsu, but like other professions probably, right? But in jiu-jitsu, it's constantly evolving. So like imagine as a blue belt, you're like constantly learning new things and learning new strategies and styles, and so I think that's probably why it's so attractive as well, is because you're being challenged, and you're being rewarded, and you're actually learning something, all the time. So usually a lot of people probably think like, well, we stop learning in high school or in college, or after we start our job, we learn a bunch, but by the time you're mid-30s, you found your career, and you may be learning a little bit here and there, but then jiu-jitsu comes in your life, and you're like, wow, I have so much to learn in this niche art community, So I think there's something to be said about that, and giving us balance. I think people read books because they're learning stuff, right? And it's good for your brain to be always absorbing new things.
Now, one of the things you mentioned all these potential black belts that may be sprouting up at Clark Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but for all the newly minted black belts out there who are interested in opening an academy, what advice and tips and things can you share?
I don't know. I think it depends on where that person is in their life. When I was like mid-20s, I think I was 26, I was thinking about opening my own space, not just teaching out of like a boxing club or something, but like teaching out of opening my own academy, and having all this overhead and stuff. And my instructor said like, I'm excited for you, but I also think you are maybe too young to be doing that and taking on that big responsibility. Maybe it's not the right time in your life to do that. And so like, I think it depends on where you are in your life, and understanding some other people think like, oh, I want to do a jiu-jitsu academy so I can train all the time, and because I love jiu-jitsu. And then all of a sudden you are presented with all these challenges, like, oh, I need to have insurance, and now I got to people manage. It is a lot to having an academy and all this business side of things if you don't have someone handling that for you. And it's like, I've heard people say, oh, if you really like jiu-jitsu, don't open an academy. You really want to train jiu-jitsu, don't open your own academy. When I first moved to San Diego, I was doing like a lifeguard course to be a beach lifeguard on the beach. And our lifeguard saying, like the older lifeguard saying, you will eventually hate to go to the beach. You will never go to the beach for fun, And I'm like, really? Oh, okay, And he's like, yeah, because you won't be able to relax. You'll be constantly looking at people in the water. Oh, this guy's getting in a rip current or something, and you won't be able to relax, and something that you enjoy. So I don't know, bringing work to a place of pleasure might have some of those obstacles, right? But it can be very, very rewarding in many different ways. and can be great. But some places in the world maybe have too many jiu-jitsu academies already, and it might not be so necessary to open so many. You know what I mean? But, and sometimes I try to encourage some of my black belts that are thinking about teaching, like, keep teaching here. Like, let's grow our academy strong. I give Henzo as an example because Henzo has such a powerful academy in the means of like number of students, number of instructors, and he's able to provide a good life for his instructors by just pure numbers. I mean, there's in the center of Manhattan, it's a super populated area, right? But instead of like every single black belt wanting to create his own tribe, encouraging some of the guys to also just keep building the tribe that you're already in and keep giving back and keep finding rewards in where you are and ways to keep growing in professionally or in whatever way you need to.
I've heard you previously mention that you were hesitant to share online. Why was that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know why. I think it must be something about being in my family. But I remember one time I showed a technique. I was traveling with my dad in Ireland actually when I was like 19, and he went to a seminar, invited me to come with him, and I allowed someone to film a private lesson, and my dad found out, and he was like, rule number one, we don't let people film, you know what I mean? And this was like early 2000s. So, I've thought a lot about that. And nowadays I see people like William Taggart just did a seminar at my academy, and he said, if any of you guys want to pull out your cell phones and film, you're more than welcome to do that to help you remember the techniques so you don't forget. But then there's a whole side of like these people pay to go to the seminar, and then other people might not pay, and it's special because you're there, not because you could film it and then share it with all your friends or whatever. I don't know. It's I'm not like 100% sure of like there might have been like this old samurai style of mentality where like we don't share, we keep the techniques for ourselves so it doesn't just leak into the people that are going to become our opponents one day, so they know. I think my dad comes from that era, like don't let them film you because we want to be able to surprise them with our technique, right? And there was a lot of that, like don't cross train because you're going to compete against those people. Why would you do that? And that's real. I mean, like I've trained with people and then competed against them. I remember specifically one guy that I trained with when I was sponsored by Shoyoroll, and I trained with him at Shoyoroll, and then I competed with him like twice in the following month at black belt, and I think I was able to beat him because I kind of knew exactly what he was going to do. Because the first time I trained with him, I was just studying his game. I was like, he looks like he's my size, so I'm just gonna like see everything, all of his tendencies, and kind of like let him show me his style, So there is that too. I've gone to places too where I'm like, I think I might compete against these people. I'm not going to show my best moves. I'm not going to use my best moves, So it's funny like that.
Can you tell me like an aha moment?
I mean, there's so many. I think I'm still having them, I think I'm still having them all the time. I love to see this philosophy things, about jiu-jitsu, psychology, like how it rewards us. And even being an instructor, like new ways to teach. Maybe one of the recent ones is like you were saying about I let my students teach the move and then see if anybody has any comment. I was like, I think this kind of works. At least it works for me. As a competitor, I think everybody kind of may doubt themselves from time to time and go compete against somebody really good. And then they're, wow, I actually did a lot better than I thought, or I won against someone that I thought I wouldn't win against. So those are very rewarding aha moments.
Was there ever a time you considered quitting, and why?
No, I don't think so. I think I really considered it. I grew up in that age of like being 10, maybe even 8, 9, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, that age where I'm like seeing all these people in my family, like, my dad bringing me to watch the first UFCs and all those extreme fighting championships, and like seeing all these guys, my older cousins fighting. So I always kind of thought like this is going to be part of my legacy as well, my path, somewhere there. And I had thought about for a while, like maybe I'll have my own profession. I was interested in like health, nutrition, or sports medicine, doing something like that was kind of has some relation to jiu-jitsu. And I thought well, maybe I think at like 17, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go to college and do that as a backup and then try jiu-jitsu. And, if I need to have that bigger profession, then I'll have that. But, jiu-jitsu, and luckily, I think worked out for me and has given me a decent life and has connected me with great people. And it's been a good time to be alive in the evolution of jiu-jitsu, I believe.
So speaking of something really cool, can you tell us a little bit about Clark Gracie Connected?
Yeah, Clark Gracie Connected is something that I started building, like basically a big library of techniques that I'm teaching day to day, and how those techniques are evolving even for me, like, oh, I used to teach the armbar this way, now I'm teaching it with this detail, sharing all these different parts of my teaching so that there is like a record of that. And then mainly I'm doing it for like my affiliates. They're saying, oh, we're part of Gracie Allegiance, we're part of Clark Gracie's team, and we see him for like a few days a year. That's not very much. So I want to be able to stay more connected, and why not use technology to do that? But we talked about sharing jiu-jitsu, and I kind of took a while to start something like that. But I feel like maybe because I was competing a lot, I didn't want to show everything that I was going to be doing. Maybe it's just like ingrained in me because of the family I came from. Like, don't share with your enemies what you're going to do against them, And it made sense to me. But now I'm really not competing too much, every once in a while. Last year I competed only twice, and I'm doing it more just for fun now. I feel like I'm at a point where I'm happy to share. I want to share. I want people to remember my jiu-jitsu, to learn my jiu-jitsu, to give me feedback, from my jiu-jitsu, and a way for me to share with the community, give back a bit, and let it be known and recorded my style, So the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is we all might do the same move, but we all might do it a little differently. We might all have ways that have made it work, make it work better for us. And when we connect with someone that can use it the same way we do, that's kind of a cool feeling, It's like I invented that piece of that move, and that person is now has adapted that to their game too.
That's a tremendous value for the community and your affiliates. And as you mentioned there, I've heard other people mention the thing with Clark is these little details that have made a world of difference to my game in so many different respects.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's very appreciated, right? As a teacher, to see those being passed down and appreciated.
Well, Clark, I want to be respectful of your time here. Was there anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't touch on?
Nothing on my mind right now. I mean, we talked a lot about really good stuff, and I love keeping the doors open to the jiu-jitsu community and letting them know that we're here. I am doing a camp that's like a jiu-jitsu yoga camp with an association in Mallorca, Spain. So that's something that BJJ and Yoga Retreat Festival. And that's a great one. It's in October. Yeah, no, I'm meeting amazing people, connecting with great resources, and jiu-jitsu has, opened so many doors for me, and it's just nice to see it all come together. People are always welcome here in San Diego, and I have that Clark Gracie Connected site that it's been really fun building and sharing.
Very cool. So where can the listener viewers get more information about you and everything that you're up to?
Oh yeah, I have my website, clarkgracie.com, Clark Gracie Connected, to follow along with the teaching that I'm filming in my classes. Instagram, the way I connect with a lot of people too.
Awesome. We'll add all those links and all those notes in the show notes, everyone. So thanks for watching and listening. I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda, and give us a thumbs up and subscribe and the whole usual thing. Clark, I can't thank you enough for your time. This was a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Adolfo. It's been a pleasure.
Great. We'll see you guys next time.